Haven't done one of these in a while. I'm sorry if I stutter. I'm sorry if I ramble. Sorry if I lose my train of thought. But when I saw these come out for Automobilista 2, I was like, you know what? I have to do something. I have to manifest. Look what came to Automobilista 2. They call them Super Trophy trucks. They're not Super Trophy trucks. These are USAC Stadium Super Trucks. This is Robbie Gordon's series that he tours around with to various Supercars Australia and IndyCar events as a support act. They put a bunch of concrete ramps down. They run like 10 lap races. They get a bunch of like old kart guys and Robbie Gordon's friends and his kid and even some influencers to just run these little sprint races, and they're ridiculous to watch and they're really, really cool. These are now in Automobilista too. You get the truck, you get 20 liveries, you get 10 tracks. They're just based on layouts that already exist in the game. They just put concrete ramps down. The genesis of the series is not an unrealistic series. This is a series that actually races in real life. The genesis of the series dates back to the late 1980s with the Mickey Thompson Entertainment Group series. So this was a racing series that competed primarily in American football stadiums using scaled down buggies and trophy trucks on little short course horseshoe shaped tracks in like a bite sized off road championship that would only take place in stadiums. So this is not like proper 1-to-1 scale trophy truck racing. This was like scaled down what they'd call stadium trucks. Robbie raced in this, Jimmy Johnson raced in this, Ivan Iron Man Stewart raced in this. It was the racing series featured in the game Super Off-Road in arcades and NES. Yes, that is technically a sim. But unfortunately, by the mid 1990s, this series ran out of money, and I believe Mickey Thompson was murdered. So one of the coolest pieces of history in American off-road racing basically fell to the wayside. Robbie goes on to NASCAR, he goes on to kart, he makes his millions, and then basically as a retirement project, he goes, you know what, I just miss racing stadium trucks so much. I'm going to build a fleet of them. I'm going to put modern safety enhancements into them so the driver greenhouse area is a little bit bigger in this truck. They're running V8s instead of V4s like the sport compact trucks that he used to race back in the 80s and 90s. And he was just going to tour around with like a fleet of anywhere from 10 to 14, run as support acts at like IndyCar races or Supercars Australia races. They're going to put a couple of concrete ramps down on the track, say to hell with track limits, and just bomb around with his friends, his kid, and again, random influencers like Cletus McFarland, who almost won a race at Long Beach a couple of years ago, and just make a whole bunch of money putting on a good show for the fans. Those trucks are now in AMS2, and it's fucking cool, especially if you're someone like me who grew up with either Soda Off-Road Racing, which was published by Sierra. It was not developed by Sierra. It did not have the Grand Prix Legends physics engine, which some like to try and point out as a piece of trivia. That's actually untrue. It was a completely separate project. Or an even more obscure game with these trucks, Leadfoot by Ratbag Games, who are best known for dirt track racing. They put out a stadium truck game maybe a year or two after MTEG disbanded. And then, of course, some of you may have played the extremely underrated Baja Edge of Control by THQ and Rainbow Studios. It came out for the 360 and PS3 in 2008. It did get a PC release in 2018, I believe. So if you're a fan of stadium trucks, you really haven't had a whole lot of games to play or even like proper sims to drive the stuff in at all. Your only modern option right now are basically the two Automobilista games. They just came to AMS2 maybe 5 days ago. It's like 12 bucks Canadian. 20 skins you get. You get 10 different track layouts based on existing track layouts, some of which are actually realistic. The Long Beach layout is the actual USAC sanctioned layout Stadium Super Trucks ran at. Full disclosure though, the trucks are not particularly great. I'm just going to throw this out there right now. I do currently have the record at Long Beach. I've cross-referenced with Max Gordon's onboards. I've cross-referenced with Robbie Gordon's onboards. Man, it doesn't match at all. I'm just going to say this right now. If you are looking for an authentic stadium super truck experience, dude, it doesn't even remotely resemble what Max is doing in the cockpit. The truck wants to swap ends around 170 or 180K. I don't know why it wants to do that. Max is driving it with one hand. It's silly, but it's still fun. I'm just going to put that out there right now. I hope they fix it. I hope they do a second pass of these trucks. It's nowhere near close, but it's still kind of fun the way it is. It's just super unrealistic and weird. We're going to do a race in them anyway, because these races at the end of the day are not particularly long. I looked up on YouTube the actual, race footage. They just broadcast, stream everything for free. When they were at Long Beach, they only did like little dinky 10-lap races. So we're just going to do a 10-lap race against 9 other trucks, which is the field size. Again, it's basically a Robbie Gordon fleet show. He brings 10 trucks. Guys just pay to run the full season. Sometimes they have a sponsor, sometimes they don't. It's really just a show at the end of the day. So we're going to mirror that kind of format along with a 10-minute qualifying session, because they do qualify these guys. And we're just going to bomb around in some USAC trucks. It's fun stuff, man. And it's nice to get back into the swing of YouTube and just kind of manifest and show that, hey, I'm here. You know, I know I've gone from uploading a lot and being super involved with the sim racing YouTube side of things and trying to grow the channel and hit the 10K sub mark and then just kind of vanished. I know, homie. I know. I'm aware of that. Sometimes it's just nice to give you guys a gift and be like, yeah, I'm still around these parts, and you get to hear me talk sim racing for a bit, talk life for a bit, that sort of thing. So let's look at our settings here. Long Beach STT track, 5 jumps. It's just a full track layout. They were actually, Reza did a good job of adjusting the track limits to reflect what you were allowed to do as a stadium super truck driver. You get penalties for missing ramps, which I really like. It's really accurate. You're allowed to cut certain parts of the stadium super trucks for cutting in real life. Happy to see that. Good levels of authenticity on that part. So let's go to opponents. There's a bug right now for whatever reason. It always just gives me the max opponents based on the number of liveries in the class. We're going to turn that down to 9. We're running max skill at 120. Wet skill doesn't matter. It's not going to rain today. Aggression low. I just want to have a safe race that kind of reflects what actual drivers would do. And mistake standard. 15 minutes of qualifying. We're probably going to skip that. And then in terms of rules, we are going to have proper cut track rules and stuff like that. Pit exit penalty and all sorts of stuff like that. 5 track limit warnings before you're given a penalty. Pit road speed, of course, we're going to have it. Anyway, let's go. So we're going to qualify in the in-game environment time at around 11 a.m. in the morning. And then our race is going to be, I think, at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Currently, we hold the track record here, a 139 flat. There's a video of it from Cockpit View on my channel I put up earlier today. Unfortunately, it doesn't show my wheel inputs. I don't show that stuff. So it is what it is. But hopefully you can kind of infer from what I'm doing and just the attitude of the truck what I'm trying to make it do. Anyway, I do have a custom setup for this. It's not a whole lot of adjustments from what the stock setup is. I turned down the steering lock. I thought it was way too twitchy. Anti-roll bar, a bit of changes. I didn't change the tires at all. I changed the brake bias a little bit. Changed the longitudinal weight bias a bit. Did not change lateral. Suspension, you'll probably want to take a look at this. Some changes made, mostly to rebound settings. Ride height's always as low as you can go. I believe I changed the spring rate, but other than that, like, there's really not a lot you can do on these trucks. We will turn the fuel up just to be safe. I want to make it the whole race. And sorry, I'm drinking a Slurpee. You do have the option to set automatic gears on or off in this thing. Obviously, you want to turn them off. I'm going to overwrite that setup here, and let's go out for some Q laps. Fake names is what it is. I haven't gotten a skin pack yet. Trucks have only been out for a few days, so I'm not too concerned. Let's go for a rip. So as I said in the intro piece, I don't think these trucks are particularly realistic, but look, I bought them. I'm playing them anyway. I'm very clearly at least having some fun with them. A primarily tarmac-based racing sim, trying to model, I guess, all-season or off-road tires, doesn't really mesh well. You usually need like a specific tire model just for off-road style stuff. And basically the issue you run into is that it always feels like you're on ice in these trucks. I will probably make it look a little more manageable. I understand that. That is down to skill and being able to adapt to crazy sim cars. The truck is not nearly as planted as it looks on the screen. Just a heads up. It seems like at 180 these things just want to swap ends even in a straight line, which from what I've seen again from Max and Robbie's onboards that are just everywhere on YouTube, these trucks do not try and kill them. I mean, he's letting his 13-year-old kid drive these. And it was like it was literally like a father-son bonding activity to race in this series. In this sim, you pretty much cannot go down the front stretch at Long Beach without the truck trying to kill you. It's a little ridiculous. But like I said, it's still fun. We're still doing a race. It shows I like it to some degree, and I actually think the body style and the overall art style they went for with these truck bodies, they are official Chevrolet Silverados, when the SSTs are fake off-brand trucks, I prefer how these look compared to the actual SSTs. It's really funny. Coming around the final corner, I guess we're starting one of our flyers. And we come up with another issue with these trucks. The AI, even at 120%, are just not quick. I mean, we are flying up on this guy and having to lift. And just going full throttle, I mean, we're blowing by him at 120, so there's a bit of an issue there. I'll probably put a few good laps in. Again, my track record here overall is a 139.0. It would be cool to get kind of close to that under authentic conditions and not just mineshaft time trial stuff, but it is what it is. If I don't, it's okay. So that cut there, that's legal. That's what they were doing in SST races. It's way easier to just not enforce track limits with these trucks. And again, the SST layouts have been set up with that in mind, so you only get a cut penalty if you miss a ramp, which is how it should be. So good job, Reza, on that part. The driving style needed in these is really interesting. The shifting style needed in these is really interesting. You never want to yaw the truck out because you just immediately lose forward bite. So you always want to keep the rear end in check, and you never want to... In these trucks, it's really easy to just start spinning the tires with too much throttle. So you need this like crazy amount of throttle control off the corner to really get the proper amount of bite down, otherwise you just lose all your momentum. Doing stuff like tapping the brakes in the air does pitch the nose down too. It's a lot of fun. First lap 142, that's fucking slow. Come on, let's go a little quicker. And you can see right there the truck is trying to swap ends. Not sure how that behavior got into this because it's just not accurate at all. Watched too many of these races when I was bored. Let's try and put down a heater though. So one of my favorite YouTubers of all time, and the person I tried to most closely resemble my style of YouTube videos off of is a guy named 8 Thoughts. I don't even think he's on YouTube anymore, but he's on Instagram. It's a bus driver based in Vancouver, and it was just a guy who would just play Battlefield 3 and just like tell stories. That's, you know, for a little piece of trivia, if you guys have watched my shit for years and been with me through the ups and downs and the popularity and the obscurity and everything in between, that is who my content is like fashioned after. Which means that no, if you're here for like insider Project Motor Racing details, because I do work on that game in a pretty significant position, I'm not leaking anything here. This is my little kind of man cave to just kind of hang out and chat sim racing without turning it into like a shill piece for what's going on at work. So no Project Motor Racing news in this one, boys. You can turn it off if that's what you're here for. So down to a 141.5. We can go quicker. But yeah, that's the big secret. That's a little trivia with my channel. If you're wondering like who I've styled my content after, it's a guy named 8 Thoughts. He did Battlefield 3 videos. He mostly just shits posts on Instagram now. I don't even think his channel's up anymore. But another fellow Canadian, he's out on the West Coast. I'd even have to go look and see what he's doing on YouTube nowadays. I'm pretty sure he privated all of his stuff because he just kind of got out of it. And I believe he was wanting to be a cop at one point, so he had to kind of take some stuff down. But you may be able to find remnants of it, and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's totally what Austin does on YouTube. Yep, I know. Because that was the content I enjoyed. And he used to just bomb around on Battlefield 3. So I'm really strong at the front half of Long Beach on these trucks, not so much the back half. And again, there's definitely a huge difference between the times you put down in qualifying with a perfectly prepped track and 5 liters of fuel in the tank, no tire wear, no tire heat, anything like that, versus what you end up running in, I guess, a live scenario. But I'd really like to run like a low 140. I think that'd be cool. So I'm going to try and push here for qualifying. It's good practice for the race too. And I assume we're going to get quicker as the tires wear in. At least that's the hope. And as I mentioned before, the truck is probably going to look a lot more planted than it feels. Like I'm actually quite fighting it, and I'm doing an okay job trying to talk and drive. It's probably not going to translate without being able to see my inputs. These trucks are an extreme handful. I don't think they're like that in real life. It's not what I've seen in onboard, so they need a second pass. It is what it is. I hope they get it, because the stupid jumpy trucks, as Robbie calls them, are fun. Six tenths up, pushing a little harder. They're definitely fun under braking. I think they're realistic under braking, but there's too much throttle control needed, and they are sketchy at anything above like 150. And yes, there is a certain throttle rhythm in hitting the ramps. You can't just hold it wide open. It'll upset the balance of the truck. Something Ethan and the guys taught me from their work on the Monster Jam stuff. .5, here we go. And yeah, you can see the truck is just trying to kill me right there. Trying for a quick lap here. As you can see, we are killing the AI on max difficulty. It's not even close. Yeah, the truck always wants to be positioned directly forward. You never want to yaw the truck out because it just causes a ton of drag on the tires. So you have to be really, really careful to bring the rear end back in line and not give it too much gas so it yaws it out, because you just lose time. One of the hardest vehicles in sim racing, period, right now. Dead serious. So my goal as a driver right now is to never yaw at the rear end ever. And never feed it more throttle than I absolutely have to. So there's a shitload of finesse going on right now. And again, it's just, I don't think this is how the real truck is. Great exit there. Wow. Gonna leave it in second here. And it seems like the deltas are mismatched right now. Probably going to be our quickest lap of the session. Kind of blew the hairpin. Maybe we didn't. 140 flat. There we go. That's pretty quick. So let's tell some stories. I don't want to just have it be a dry sim racing video where I talk about what I'm doing each corner. You know, I can talk and drive and just bullshit with you guys. So, first question is probably going to be, hey, do you still do LFM on AMS2? The answer is no. I actually had my account deleted. Basically, I got big into LFM when it was announced that they'd be coming out to AMS2. As you guys know, I have a permanent ban from iRacing. It's kind of both because I criticize the game too much and because I work for a competitor. So they probably don't want me in there, you know, like, investigating their stuff or, like, doing recon on them. So that I actually kind of... Their ban has made more sense as time has passed. So it would be natural that I would gravitate to a platform like LFM as my, you know, kind of replacement for iRacing. And for a period of time I did, you can see it on my channel, I did a lot of LFM races on AMS2. The issue I ran into is that while LFM was good, there's some issues with AMS2, and this is long-time stuff that the developers know about. It's in their bug reporting form, where race results were not getting scored correctly, and I had won actually a number of races on LFM that did not count. Just when it came time to actually exporting the standings from the session, even though I won, on my stream I clearly won, that sort of thing, it would say I DNF'd and the server would desync or some fucky shit would happen somewhat regularly, and I was getting very frustrated because I was actually putting a significant amount of time onto building setups, onto learning tracks, onto taking time out of my day to run longer races, you know, running multiple races, and I basically treating it like I did on iRacing when I was 19. And as you guys know, even if you're an experienced sim racer, building setups does take a decent amount of time and effort. You know, you can't just walk in, no one's a magician and goes, you should run 750-pound springs on the front tires. That's not really how it works. There is still some time and trial and error and even some telemetry stuff that goes into building a half-decent competitive setup. And it can take a lot of time out of your day, and it was frustrating that I was putting this time in, and I wanted to put this time in, only to run races, and quite frequently was resulting in these races not being scored and saying I DNF'd, and instead of winning quite lucrative top split races and stuff like hypercars, which are a big deal. Like, I was beating guys in Europe, which is not something that happens as a Canadian, to beat, you know, established European sim racers. It was just invalidating a bunch of races, and after like the 5th time, I had reached out to LFM and basically said, you know, are you gonna do anything about this? You know, a lot of standings for a lot of races are borked by either the server desyncing or not advancing from qualifying to race, or the server was wet, but for some reason it wasn't really wet, and you could run dry tires in the rain and out-qualify everybody. It was just an endless list of issues that LFM basically, you know, shrugged their shoulders and said, you know, this really isn't on our end, it's on Reza. And I went, oh god, I don't really want to have to wait years for a game to get fixed. This is kind of frustrating, so I had them nuke my account. You know, I guess it's petty, it's probably an overreaction. Some of you will probably think, yeah, that's an overreaction, dude. Like, it did say it was in beta, but it's frustrating to go back years in, like, a bug reporting thread and see the same issues being listed time and time again, saying, hey, you know, I can't run an online league, or I can't run a race with my buddies because it's scoring us all in weird spots, and that it never got fixed, and then they just rolled out LFM and said, yeah, here's a ranked online platform, knowing that our race can't score results properly. It was just... I wasn't in the right mindset to deal with that long term, you know what I mean? So qualifying's over. At 120% difficulty, we are almost 5 seconds faster than P2. Okay. We're going to run the race anyway, because what else do we have to do? So yeah, that's my odyssey with LFM. It was really nice to race with people in like a competitive environment again, but there's too much going on with AMS2 on the AMS2 side that just hadn't been fixed and was unlikely to be fixed, that I couldn't continue to put the amount of time I was into it and have like a ranked account and like maintain it, and the fun stuff that comes with sim racing, like worrying about your rank and trying to see how high you could get it and stuff like that. If every third race it was DNFing me, and I had it on stream that this was not on my end, the game was literally not stable enough to score races correctly. It was just frustrating, man. And that, again, there was other things we ran into. People running into issues where their traction control just randomly be disabled. People running into issues where people were getting green lights on the rolling start or formation lap at different times, and it would DQ random people because they weren't maintaining minimum pace. It was just dumb. So I've retired for now, and I'm just doing offline races. Anyway, let's advance. Do we have enough fuel? Only a 10-lap race. 3 in the afternoon. Sure, we have enough fuel. Got a lot of fuel in. Let's go. Standing start. Turn the lap indicator off. We really don't need that. And here we go. Already the truck car is trying to swap ends on me. Doing what I can to keep it in check. And we are presumably through turn 1 clean. Again, this is max difficulty, 120%. And this is typically when these trucks would actually race in the day, too. Usually, the IndyCar race would finish, and after all, like, the podium festivities and stuff took place, they say, oh, by the way, we got one more race for you, and it's the Stadium Super Trucks. And I think they raced every day, too. Like, they have a pretty long schedule. So what else has been going on with me? Some of the stuff I gotta try and be diplomatic about. Because it is YouTube, and like I do have like a decent enough audience, and I'm trying not to be a massive asshole. As you've probably noticed, I've abstained from uploading much of anything recently. You boys going through it. It's just something that happens at this age. One of the things I talked about on my birthday last year is that Alberta, at least living here, we do tend to have like a pretty big drinking problem with just a lot of people. And I was getting to the age where like some of the people I was surrounding myself with were still kind of trapped into that. And it's fun when you're 18, 19, 20 and you're around these people because like, the night kind of goes in a crazy direction sometimes. You just go on random adventures. And even through your mid-20s, it's not really a detriment to your social life. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, like every third night, like everyone just kind of gets shit-faced in someone's backyard. It is what it is. Once you hit 30, it stops being funny, full stop, right? And especially if you yourself are anywhere near put together or like on a decent path, like you're making okay money, or you have a lot of hobbies, or you're making connections, or just things are going kind of okay for you, it can be very hard to continue being around people who just want to drink and don't really push themselves the way you're pushing yourself. Like, I'm not trying to sound like I'm better than anybody, but like at 32 years old, I work for a sim racing dev. It's really, really cool. I really, really like my job. I don't hate my job. I don't, when 5 o'clock comes and I sign out of Slack, I don't immediately start searching for the bottle or an excuse to drink because two hockey teams that I'm like tangentially interested in are playing each other that night. But I was around people where that was kind of like the norm. And usually, again, in your teens and mid-20s, people are okay at handling their alcohol. It gets to a point where if people are still drinking to that extent by the time they're 30, 31, 32, this is the age where, like, DUIs start to happen. This is the age where, like, it starts affecting them even when they're sober. It's the age where they start making financial decisions that don't make sense. You just kind of see all the bad sides of it at once, so I had to really start distancing myself from people and kind of being an asshole about it too. And it's not fun on my side either. A lot of it is just frustrating. It's something you have to deal with growing up, and just a coming of age moment that you sometimes outgrow your friends, it's called. But it's never fun to turn on people you've known for like 10, 15, almost 20 years and be like, dude, like I can't do this anymore. Like, no one has hobbies, you know? Like, are we really going to spend like every summer drinking in someone's backyard? It was just getting kind of ridiculous. So it's very hard to cut out not one person, but like an entire group and say, you know, thanks for the memories, but like, dude, I can't do this. Like, this is going nowhere. So that has admittedly been difficult for me to deal with, and it's part of the reason I'm just not as, you know, into video games like I used to be, because like the guys I used to game with all the time are just not around. Because, you know, I had some friends that were part of this group where we would just be on Discord like literally every night, right? Just be like, what car do you want to drive? You know, where do you want to drive it? What game do you want to get into? And that's a lot of fun, right? But it got to the point where it's like, I don't really want to play video games with you if you're drunk, you know? And stuff like that can also spiral into the real world, like, you know, what do you mean you don't have any money for go-karting? You know? It can be frustrating and very difficult to deal with. Even if you're in a position where, like, you're not necessarily in the wrong, you still kind of suffer from it too. So that's probably the main reason I really haven't been uploading a whole bunch of stuff, is because, you know, my gaming partners are just not around, because like I couldn't deal with that anymore. It sucks. It really sucks. And while all this was happening, I haven't really talked about this in any detail. It's going to be buried in a random Stadium Super Truck video, but like, hey, that's kind of why we're here. And like I said, my YouTube style is based off this random Canadian guy who used to play Battlefield. Guy's a bus driver in Vancouver. Guy's name is 8 Thoughts, where he just kind of would bullshit and shoot the shit while being a beast at Battlefield. Oh god, how do I be diplomatic about this while I'm trying to drive this Stadium truck around here? So I was in a relationship for the past year and a half. If you go through my social media feed, you can pretty much figure out who the girl is. Like, she's commenting or liking on all the photos. Her face is like pretty clearly visible. Like, it wasn't really a secret. Again, how do I be diplomatic about this? She was a former model. She's been to the Playboy Mansion a few times. It's very easy to track her down. And for a period of time, it was actually pretty great. Like, we were both kind of like niche internet micro celebrities in our own fields. It was really, really cool. Unfortunately, and this does happen quite a fair bit in like online spaces, sometimes people in these positions, you know, their personal life is a little bit different than what they present online. And it can be very awkward when you end up discovering that. Because, you know, you have this person who's essentially lusted after or adored by, like, fans. I'm not saying you guys lust after me. I'm just some random sim racing YouTuber. But, like, there's guys who, like, really respect what I have to say. About sims, about racing, just things like that, right? And it's the same thing with her and her field. She's pretty respected. Like, she's... Again, without giving away details, she was a somebody. And the closer we got, and as, you know, relationships progress, and as things in Alberta kind of start to take center stage that are commonplace here, you end up seeing a side of them that is a little bit awkward because it puts you in a weird position. Because it's not just, well, your girlfriend is having a bit of issues, but it's a celebrity that's having a bit of issues. And you aren't really quite sure what the best course of action is. So if they start dealing with, let's say, I don't know, mental health issues or substance abuse issues, or are doing things kind of behind the scenes that could potentially get them in legal trouble, it's a very odd spot to be in. Because it's not just your girlfriend. It's like, well, technically, you know, this could blow up and be a bit of an issue. So navigating that kind of stuff has been not particularly great. Man, I'm cruising around here. But yeah, unfortunately, I do know that the ex is involved in some bad stuff, and because she's a bit of a celebrity, I imagine it'll likely make the rounds at some point. And it's been a lot for me to deal with personally, and it's completely new territory for a lot of people. And I'm just at the moment I'm just really taking it day by day. Part of that includes building setups for MS2 trophy trucks. Man, how are we 20 seconds ahead? Hire me, Robbie Gordon. It was definitely kind of cool to like date like a micro celebrity. And there were a lot of good parts to that whole saga, I guess. It's disappointing when it doesn't go according to plan, because it really doesn't go according to plan. So I'm definitely really scared on how to handle it. You know, it's not a spot a lot of people expect to be in. But I think I'll generally come out okay. Yeah, as you drive down the front stretch in these trucks, the rear end just wants to come around, which I've never seen in onboard videos. And then it's really easy to overload the tires and get sliding, which is a bit frustrating because you get into these really lazy slides that, in real life, these trucks tend to have a ton of lateral grip. Like, to me, they almost seem like spec Miatas that can hit jumps. They're not sliding anywhere, like they're just kind of hooked up and heavy and rolly. I don't know what our best lap is. 141.6. Yeah, we're not running that quick in the race, but we don't need to. Again, the AI is definitely not calibrated for these trucks. At 120%, we're something like 5 or 6 seconds a lap. quicker than them. They haven't pit yet, so no one's got damage, but I would describe these as unfinished. It's a bit disappointing, because like these are cool to drive. And I imagine they'd be kind of fun online too. I mean, you'd have to really be careful to get in with a good group of guys, because like I said, these things are unstable. You can see that there. But I feel like in a good group of like 8 or 10 people, these could be kind of fun. But there's a lot about this pack that, in my opinion, was just not in a great state. The AI is not very good. The truck handling is not very good. I think speed-wise, someone pointed out in my last video on this, just the hot lap stuff, that were like 4 seconds a lap quicker than the real trucks. But at the very least, I do like that they put these in the game, because the gesture of including stuff that's outside of the GT and open wheel norm and just letting you try different stuff to race, I think that's really cool. I think sim racing needs a little more of that. Like, it's very strange how many racing series are out there that just don't have, that just aren't featured in the game, period. I've always found that a little odd. Like, I've always found it odd that stuff like Japanese Super GT just gets ignored. I've always found it odd that, like, NHRA drag racing isn't tried to be worked in somewhere. I've always found it odd that, like, IndyCar doesn't have more of a presence across multiple sims. Thankfully, World of Outlaws has their own game, but for the longest time they didn't. Monster trucks probably deserve a dedicated sim outside of, like, BeamNG and the Milestone game. Like, they genuinely do need, like, a dedicated monster truck sim that lets you race and freestyle and two-wheel skills and features track small errors and stuff like that. So when stuff like Stadium Super Trucks gets implemented into AMS2, like, to me it's cool, because, you know, even if they really miss the mark, it's just something unique to drive and race, really. I just wish that they would have got a little more accurate. So we're on our final lap now. Yeah, we definitely slowed down our pace from qualifying the race, but that's really all we needed. I guess if you own AMS2 as well, and you want to try to do some shakedown laps and compare yourself to me, at least you have realistic laps to try and aim for, as opposed to just like a freak hot lap that I set in the time trial mode. Because those are just not reflective of what people can normally do under race conditions. And we're coming around with hairpin for the final time. So your goal is like a mid 141 in race trim, and then like a 140 flat in qualifying. The 139 I set on the leaderboard is just, it's dumb. Don't even try and aim for that. And that's race over. Anyways, thanks for catching up with me. Until next time, this is AMS2 Stadium Trucks.